It's just another indication of just how little motivation the Republican base has to turn out in this election. Could it change? It could, but show me the thing that's going to change it. Show me the thing that's going to inspire this Republican base.
The polls are shifting. The map is changing. The fight for Congress is on. This is the battlefield.
There were a bunch of primaries this week. The one that really stuck out to me was Alaska Senate. The Democrat got more votes than the Republican in the primary. The top four, regardless of party, go on to the general election. And under that scenario, Dan Sullivan, the Republican incumbent U.S. Senator, came in second by right now about 8,000 votes. Alaska is a red state. And that's important if the Republican is coming in second in these kind of jungle primaries, because it does start to signal a little bit of concern there.
This is right in keeping with many other signals we've had about Republican turnout problems all cycle. There have been 117 state legislative special elections since January 2025. Voters have 5.6 points toward Democrats. We're also seeing all kinds of polling signals. Percent of 2024 Trump voters, these are people who voted for Donald Trump in 2024, 38% of them say that they've lost confidence in their vote. 16% of them would not vote for Trump if they had to do it all over again. These are the numbers. When you're in a midterm election, which is driven by turnout, it's how you can turn out your base. You look at this number from Alaska, this feels like another brick in the igloo.
And I'm not saying in August that Sullivan's going to lose. In 2004, when I was on the Murkowski race, the first time we were ahead in the polls was the Friday before the election. So right. There is plenty of time on this. But his poor performance in this primary is the flashing warning sign that should alarm everyone.
In the midterms, turnout is king. All right, what's number two?
Number two is my home state of South Carolina. There was a debate for the runoff. Graham was asked a question about Taiwan, and her answer was, quote, "I'm not that informed on national security, but I do support the military." She followed up by saying, "National security is not my thing." Now, a lot of problems with this one.
That SNL skit with the two people who want to become synchronized swimmers. It's, "I'm not a strong swimmer." Okay. Thanks, darling.
People give an answer to every question that we could possibly imagine. So one of two things happened here. One, Graham could not answer a single foreign policy question. And so they gave her this throwaway answer and hoped that it worked because she was the grieving sister. Or two, she came up with it on her own and doesn't actually know anything about foreign policy. Either way, it is completely disqualifying here. And the reason why this is so important is this could put this race in play.
My read on it was slightly different. I want to get your reaction to this. As a Democrat, I just don't think Democrats have a realistic shot here. Our last nominee here was Jamie Harrison. He's a friend of mine. He put forward as good an effort and raised as much money as any Democrat could, and he came up wildly short. I see this as a test of the power of Trump's endorsement. Trump has endorsed Graham. Ralph Norman has questioned that endorsement. This past week, 3 Trump endorsees lost in their primaries, despite the power, supposedly, of Trump's endorsement in the Republican Party. That brings the tally to 7 Trump-endorsed candidates who've lost their primaries in this cycle. What's your read on that as a Republican? Is this a referendum on the value of Trump's endorsement?
Trump is strong-arming everyone in the state to endorse Graham, and he is pushing them hard to get on his side. If Ralph Norman wins the primary, this isn't even a race for Democrats. If Darlene Graham wins this primary, it creates a whole nother problem. I think you're right. The test on Trump's endorsement is really coming to a head because don't forget, his nominee for governor lost. And so he had to do the dual endorsement along the way. South Carolina is a Republican red state.
All right, give me your number 3.
Number 3 is a smaller microcosm of what I think could be happening. In Pennsylvania, Brandon Dukes, the Democrat candidate, defeated the Republican Scott Timko with a lead of just shy of 100 votes in a race to represent Pennsylvania's 12th district. Now, Trump carried this by 18 percentage points in 2024 and is not elected a Democrat to the state house in over 20 years. Is it an indication? Is it a canary in the coal mine? In these districts that are solid Trump, those margins are shrinking by a lot, and it could spell trouble for us in November.
I cited the number earlier, 117 special elections prior to this one since January 2025, an advantage of 5.6 percentage points of shift toward Democrats. It's just another indication of just how little motivation the Republican base has to turn out in this election. Could it change? It could, but show me the thing that's going to change it. Show me the thing that's going to inspire this Republican base.
So that has to be showing up in the scorecard. What are you seeing?
This is a week that was a brighter one for Republicans than we've seen in a long time because there was a little bit of lift in Trump's approval rating and a more notable bounce back in his approval rating among independents, which is both a proxy for persuasion for swing voters and for base motivation, which is all important in a midterm election.
What else are you seeing out there that might indicate some of the changing battlefield?
The big write-up that I did this week on my Substack was the dilemma that I see forming for Republican candidates. And the analogy that I drew was this. I've been there as a congressional chief of staff for a Democratic member of Congress in 2010, which was an awful year for Democrats. He had the worst political profile that you could have in that cycle. You're a Democratic member of Congress at a time where people really don't like the Democratic majority in Congress. And he was a national co-chairman for Barack Obama in 2008 at a time where people were really sour on the president. This is the exact environment that Republicans are facing right now. And so the question that we faced at the time that I think is forming for Republican candidates right now is, when do you jump ship? When does it become every man for himself and you're just going to try to swim your own course through this storm versus staying on board with the team? There is some pretty dramatic evidence that I outlined on Substack for the value of trying to separate yourself in a really high profile way from a party brand and a party leadership that's going south. A group of researchers found that overall, Trump's endorsement lining up with Donald Trump in 2018 hurt Republican candidates in the general election to the tune of about 5 percentage points. It's a real question that I think Republicans face inside campaigns.
The way we look at elections is we try to time that momentum towards when people start to vote. And so you're not going to see that in August. I think what we're going to see in September is more and more opportunities for us to take votes that can help the American people, but start to separate yourself when it is going to have the least amount of blowback by Trump and the greatest impact on voting trends.
So what you're saying is that Mike Johnson and John Thune, if they're smart, are going to try to set up votes that aren't just messaging votes to motivate the base, but are opportunities for their endangered members to cast a high-profile vote against Donald Trump.
I don't think there'll be high-profile votes against Donald Trump. Members who are in vulnerable districts often get a pass on some of these votes. And in typical White House, what would happen is they would make sure they had the votes to pass whatever piece of legislation, but the people who needed to vote against it could vote against it.
Not
and it
this
was
White House.
Not this White House. A bigger problem right now because those votes can't happen as easily. I think what we'll see more and more is we'll see people out on the campaign trail taking those positions.
To put a period on the end of this thought, that really is the dilemma that we faced as Democrats and that you guys are going to face this time as Republicans, is that it's awfully tempting to do that jump ship maneuver to try to create some high profile daylight, even if it's just one showcase vote that voters, you can use as a shorthand with voters to say, see, I'll stand against the president. I'll stand against my own party. I'm independent. The issue is in this Republican Party, you can very quickly alienate the MAGA base. And it's just such a big chunk. It's not the majority of the Republican Party, but it's such a substantial proportion of it that if you lose that segment. If that becomes a drop-off vote, if they decide to walk on you, you're toast. So it's a real, genuine dilemma. And I think it's going to be really tough for your side to navigate in the next 75 days.
Exactly. You've looked at all the data, you've looked at all the polls, you've done all the research. What's your bottom line for this week?
My bottom line for this week is that this is the first week that we've been doing this battlefield discussion where I'm giving a slight tilt toward Republicans. And it's just because of those top line structural indicators, the Trump approval number having some recovery, the Trump approval number among independents having an even bigger recovery.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to take exception at is the down arrow. You made it. It's a down arrow when the Republicans are winning.
Yeah, that's because I write all of this from a Democrat's perspective.